1100s. It's celebrated generally on March 1st, the day St. David was to have passed on in 589 AD. Celebrated with parades. Here's one in Cardiff.
Oh my goodness.
Who is that? Do you know?
No. Dressing in traditional costume.
Oh my.
Wearing Welsh emblems like the daffodil or leek. And school children putting on programs even throughout the world. Celebrating Welsh culture with folk songs, traditional dance, reading, reciting Welsh poems. Some villages hold eisteddfods, festivals of singing, dancing, and poetry, ending with choir competitions. It's a happy day. And the bells are rung at St. David's Cathedral in Pembrokeshire, Wales. Of Wales brought right here. I wanted to start by paying tribute to the one we are celebrating today, St. David, the patron saint of Wales. Dewi Sant, as he is known in Wales, lived about 1,500 years ago. He came from a family of wealth, perhaps even royalty. There are many legends of St. David, much of which comes from a monk named Rugafach, who was the son of the bishop of St. David's Cathedral in the 1100s. Legend has it that an angel foretold his birth to St. Patrick 30 years before he was born. He was born in a storm where St. Nun's Chapel is today, on the outskirts of St. David's, Nun being his mother. When he was baptized as an infant by St. Elvis of Munster, stories say a blind man was cured by his baptism water. He was educated in a monastery under a wise man called Paulinus. A story told of St. David that while preaching to a large crowd, a dove landed on his shoulder. The day he was standing on a hill, rose up so that all present could hear him speak. Many of the images of St. David include a white dove on his shoulder, symbolizing the Holy Spirit. He is particularly credited with helping to spread Christianity to the pagan tribes and to Western Britain. It is said that he founded 12 monasteries, including one in southwest Wales, where St. David's is today, and he lived only on water. His monastic community on water, herbs, and bread. He became the Archbishop of Wales, being consecrated on his pilgrimage to the Holy Land, Jerusalem. He remained in his community at Minervia, which today is the town of St. David's. It is believed by some that he lived 100 years. In the book, Ancient Cathedrals of Wales, quote, by the 2nd century, 28 priests had brought Christianity to Glastonbury. And it is also claimed that Joseph of Arimathea came there with the boy Jesus even earlier. In a publication from 1988, Glastonbury Abbey, it states, David's name was found in the calendars of Glastonbury and Sherborne, and in the 8th century, Glastonbury claimed the Blessed David as its chief patron after Our Lady. In the 10th century, the relics of St. David were claimed to be in the possession of Glastonbury, where he established a church. Glastonbury Abbey was founded in the 7th century and enlarged in the 10th century. I visited Glastonbury with the New England Labyrinth Guild and have walked the labyrinth around the tour, as it is called. There is much history connected with this special place, and you can feel God's presence there. I brought with me my album with photos from Glastonbury. Feel free to look at them later. One of the small statements that remains in legend from St. David, David's last sermon to his monks: be joyful, keep the faith, and do the little things that you have heard and seen me do. Perhaps St. David was sharing the gospel message after he had read Paul's letter to the Philippians, chapter 4, verse 9, that says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. I think this is the message of St. David was trying to pass on. Interestingly, some claim that Paul had even reached as far as South Wales in his travels. There are many churches dedicated to St. David in Wales, as well as across the sea in Ireland and in the United States. While I was doing research on Wales, St. David's Cathedral in Hobart, Tasmania came up, which had been consecrated in 1874. The church office email address was on their webpage, so I was curious to find out if their cathedral was named after St. David's of Wales or David from the Old Testament. I very shortly received an email back stating, thank you for your question. However, the answer is not straightforward. She had attached 3 pages from a book entitled God and the City, written by Professor Peter Boas, with the explanation of how the cathedral is thought to have gotten its name. The colony's first Anglican church, quote, was named in honor of David Collins, the lieutenant governor who had died suddenly in 1810 after he had proposed a site for the church, which later became St. David's Cathedral. She ends her email with, we, however, keep the 1st of March as the patronal festival, which is the date of St. David of Wales, and our slate roof is slate from Penrhyn in Wales. I hope your talk to the Welsh Society goes well. Regards, Ruth Wilson, Cathedral Administrator. All the way from Tasmania. But St. David's Cathedral in Wales, a Roman Catholic church until the mid-16th century, is one of 6 Anglican cathedrals in Wales and is in the town in what is now called St. David's. It was built at the site of St. David's Monastery, a strict monastic order he had founded in a peaceful town, which today has over 1,800 people, and is a Mecca and shrine for about 300,000 yearly. William the Conqueror is said to have visited St. David's to pray. It is here on the site of his monastery that St. David was buried. The building of the present cathedral, in traditional Norman style, was built in 1181 by Bishop Peter de Lay. Since that time, the cathedral has been vandalized, gone through an earthquake, and has had many renovations and rebuilds. In the early days, pilgrims in procession would chant and wave banners. In the cathedral also lies the tomb and chapel of Edmund Tudor, Earl of Richmond, the father of King Henry VII. In a booklet entitled The Misericords of St. David's Cathedral, Nona Rees writes, the choir of a medieval cathedral was like a building within a building where worship was almost continuous. The divine offices Matins, Lauds, Prime, Terce, Sect, Non, Vespers, and Compline were said daily in addition to the Mass while standing. The Anglican Church was the official church of Wales until 1920. John Davies, in his book, The History of Wales, says, on the 1st of April 1920, Anglicanism ceased to be the official religion of Wales. The Welsh bishops were no longer to be members of the House of Lords, and every denomination in Wales was henceforth equal in the eyes of the law. This was the final victory of Welsh political nonconformity. Thus ended a chapter which had begun with the consecration of Urban as Bishop of Llandaff in 1107, if not with Augustine's visits to the borders of Wales in 602. First mention of choristers at St. David's cathedrals was in 1132, while first mention of an organ at St. David's was in 1490, with new organs and some rebuilds in later years. A newly renovated instrument was dedicated to the cathedral in 2000. Today, St. David's has 4 choirs, a junior choir, a boys' choir, a girls' choir, and the cathedral singers. From Ancient Cathedrals of Wales, quote, "The future of music is assured here," says Alexander Mason, a recent head organist and choir director. "With consistent hard work, we're always looking to the next generation at the moment it's in a strong base." He also said the music organization within Pembrokeshire seems to be more instrumentally based. The cathedral is the only place, it seems to me, providing opportunities for young choral singers. His younger choristers range in age from 8 to 18, with rehearsals after school. Having been a chorister myself, it certainly requires a strong commitment, is often hard work, and an opportunity for excellence. But it was fun, and in the long run, well worth it. As a chorister singing in the Anglican choral tradition, I traveled just a few years ago with the All Saints Episcopal Church from Worcester, Massachusetts, to England, and we sang in Worcester Cathedral. There are the choir stalls, as well in Gloucester Cathedral, whose foundation was in 1072 to 1104, having had a small religious community starting around 678. We also sang in Hereford Cathedral, home of the Mappa Mundi, a medieval map of the world dating back to about 1300. Hereford is just 16 miles east of Wales. Certainly some of my cherished memories come from my singing tour of these ancient cathedrals. On one of our afternoons, we traveled to the medieval castle, Ludlow Castle, built 1066 to 1085. Ludlow is geographically in what is called the Welsh Marches, or the English Wales borderlands. A sign at the Ludlow Castle states, "The administration of Wales and the borderland in the 15th century was chaotic, corrupt, and fragmented. The marches were divided into semi-independent lordships. Amalgamations led to the rise of powerful families, such as the Mortimers. When Edward IV took the throne, the Mortimer lands became crown property, With most of Wales under royal control, a Council of Wales and the Marches was set up. The royal castle of Ludlow was chosen as its base and became the administrative capital of the large part of Britain, which included 2/3 of Wales, Shropshire, Hertfordshire, Cheshire, and Gloucestershire. The council was finally dissolved in 1689. I remember being told that present-day Wales was not far from where I stood, and I looked longingly to the west. On another trip to Wales with my choir, we visited the remains of Tintern Abbey. This Cistercian abbey in Monmouthshire was founded in 1131 in medieval times on the bank of the River Wye near the town of Tintern. It was disestablished in just over 400 years in 1536 when the abbot surrendered to the abbey to King Henry VIII's officials. Some of the structures date back to 1136. So, what was going on musically in these ancient days of abbeys, castles, and cathedrals? Wales has been known as the land of song. Perhaps its beauty has inspired song. Historians as early as the 1100s have written that music was a form of communication where even small children could harmonize. There were traditional songs associated with seasonal customs, such as hunting or the New Year's Day Colonnade, the welcoming of spring Candlemas, children singing pancake songs on Shrove Tuesday, and during the festival of Colin May. Summer carols were heard. With the 1536 Act of Union, as it was later referred to, brought about by Henry VIII and his advisor Thomas Cromwell, papal power was abolished. Wales was divided into 7 counties, and only English was allowed to be used in the courts of Wales. About 200 years later, they put a law into effect only allowing the English to be landowners, thus further promoting the English language and thus also leading to the suppression of Welsh folk music. The Act of Uniformity, 1662, led to the term nonconformist, referring to any Protestant Christian who did not conform to the Church of England and its rites and ceremonies. With the rise of nonconformist religion, such as the Presbyterians, Congregationalists, Baptists, and later Methodists, Unitarians, and Quakers, Welsh traditional music declined, and choral music and choral singing was emphasized over instruments, religious over secular. With the Welsh Methodist revival in the late 18th century, hymn singing became popular. John Graham, in his book, A Century of Music, states, "It may well be assumed that hymn singing was advanced by the wave of religious zeal in the 18th century in Wales as well as elsewhere." I personally became interested in Welsh hymn singing several years ago when my husband and Mark and I ventured to Salem, Massachusetts to join in a Gamanfagani that we'd read about and was to take place in a church there. We found the church, the First Church of Salem, a congregation that had started in 1629, the church, 1836. We were welcomed And then each of us were given a booklet with several pages of hymns, some in English, but many in Welsh. We were then each directed to our section, women on the right side of the church, divided into sopranos and altos, men on the left with tenors and bass sections. It was the most glorious evening I shall never forget. A Welshman, Myron Walters, conducted us, and yes, I struggled to sing in Welsh, but the spirit was beautiful. And by the end of the evening, we were hooked. Many towns and villages in Wales, and even places throughout the world where Welsh is spoken, Gamanfagani, are held. More than 1,000 a year in Wales. In this continent, the Welsh National Gamanfagani Association, which meets yearly, was started here in North America in 1929 and renamed in 2011 to the Welsh North American Association, and I know many here have attended. This year, the annual meeting and festival is being held in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, the first 4 days of September. States also hold Gamanfagani. Here is a Gamanfagani hymnal from a Welsh association in Wisconsin. Judge David D. Jenkins wrote about the Gamanfagani in Welsh and English hymns and anthems. It is not generally known, but a fact nonetheless, that part singing had its origin and early development among the Cymry, or as the English called them, the Welsh. A famous historian, Giraldus, writing in 1188, speaks of their skill in vocal music, which they sang in parts and not as elsewhere in unison. This skill and custom, developed through the ages, finds its expression throughout the Gamanfagani, the assembly or festival for sacred song. David Irwin writes in his notes to the album, Iman Cymru, the top 20 best-loved Welsh hymns. For 2.5 centuries, the nonconformist congregation of Welsh chapels have developed a style of collective harmony singing which has become known the world over. The Welsh Eisteddfod, a festival of music, literature, and performance, has its early roots in 1176 in Carmarthen Castle, held by Lord Rhys, which was a sort of bardic competition of tribal poet-singers. Many Eisteddfod followed throughout Wales. The modern Eisteddfod, closer to what is in Wales today, had its origin with a society in London that organized small Eisteddfodi in North Wales in 1789 in taverns. In 1792, a Welshman from Glamorgan created a society of poets and musicians in London called the Gorsedd of the Bards of the island of Britain to celebrate the Celts and their culture and heritage in Wales. In 1819, at the Ivy Bush Inn at Carmarthen, the Gorsedd linked with the Eisteddfod. With the foundation of the National Eisteddfod in 1861 at Aberdale, the Gorsedd has been a part of the Eisteddfod ever since. The National Eisteddfod is an annual festival in the first week of August, held in different locations in Wales each year. It holds competitions for music, vocal, solo, choral, instrumental, dance, the arts, and performance. It is a celebration of the Welsh culture held over 8 days. This past year, it was held in Montgomeryshire and the Marches, in the town of Mayfield, with over 150,000 visitors. And here is a choral group that competed. In 2016, it will be held in Monmouthshire and District. They also hold a Gamanfagani, a celebration of congregational singing. One of the most popular and much loved hymns is Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah, also known as Bread of Heaven. The words are by William Williams, written in the 1700s. He wrote the words to about 1,000 hymns, most of them in Welsh. In the 1780s, with Henry Mills being appointed as overseer to the Welsh Methodist congregation, local musical societies were formed which helped to build local interest in congregational hymn singing. In 1854, the Temperance Choral Union was formed that organized annual singing festivals. In 1859, John Roberts published a book of standard tunes for congregations, and the use of this collection led to the foundation of the Gymanfa Ganu, hymn singing festivals. The Welsh national anthem, Mae Wlad Fi Nadau, originally called Glenrhondda, or the banks of the Rhondda River, was composed in 1856 by James with words by his father, Evan James. It was first heard publicly in the Tabor Chapel in Maesteg soon after it was written. The composer performed it at a tavern Ystrasfyd in Ivor's Castle, and only 2 years later submitted it to be included in a collection of Welsh airs at the 1858 Llangollen Ystrasfyd, the collection winning a prize. Glenrhondda was included in John Owen's Gems of Welsh Melody, published in 1860, which was quite successful, selling many copies, thus enlarging the sphere where it was heard. He had changed the name of James's song from Glenrhondda to Mae Wlad Fi Nadau, or Old Land of My Fathers, thus giving the song a more national feeling. He also changed the tempo of the song, slowing it down, adding piano accompaniment as well as 4-part harmony for chorus, and changed the key of the piece to E-flat major, a key common in Victorian hymn tunes in those days. He thus changed it from a folk song to a piece that could be sung by choirs. Since the 1870s, it has frequently been sung at the end of concerts or at an Ystrasfyd. According to Sean Joggins, who wrote the book, The Welsh National Anthem, Mae Wlad Fi Nadau spent a 40-year apprenticeship in the tough world of Welsh choral singing before it could dare to be considered a national anthem. It was not chosen by a committee or a government body or a monarch, but by the jury of the Welsh nation, year after year, Ystrasfyd after Ystrasfyd, concert after concert. 1870 to the First World War is considered to be the golden age of Welsh choralism. Gareth Williams wrote in his book, Valley of Songs, Music and Society in Wales, 1840 to 1914. Interest in musical activity galvanized communities, mobilized armies of supporters, and inflamed local passions to a white heat. Graham wrote in his book, A Century of Welsh Music, in 1922, quoting Brinley Richard, who was adjudicating at the Ystrasfyd Marian held at Dolgelly on New Year's Day, 1880, quote, "We all know how popular music is at the present day, but it was not always so, even in Wales. At the beginning of this century, it has become so disfigured and degraded that singing in parts had almost disappeared. And it is stated in Robert's Cambrian Antiquities that in 1814, scarcely a trace of it remained. Thus, this singular decline in an art